Alex Lynd,
I'm Darren Kitchen.
and you're watching Hack 5 at DEFCON 32.
Hey, this is a pretty sweet setup. Where are we?
It is, yeah. We're at the Scavenger Hunt Village.
I feel like I've been supporting the scavenger hunt for over a decade now, and it is so good to see how it has grown.
Yeah, this is my first year participating with Scavenger Hunt. And
Well-
I mean, damn, a decade ago I was in elementary school.
Was there a
watching
pineapple
Hack 5.
reference? No. Oh, gosh. Well, stop it.
yeah.
You're going to make me start feeling old, but we did just celebrate our 19-year anniversary.
Damn, dude.
I know.
20 years next year. That's awesome.
Right? Like, if you're an adult, a.k.a. if you're 18 and you've been watching Hack 5, technically it's been around for longer. You're just like, oh, gosh. For Hack 5, coming to DEF CON is really like hacker prom. It's so great that we're able to meet all of our fans, and we're able to, sell pineapples and ducks and turtles and squirrels and bunnies, and I've probably forgotten half of them.
Right.
And that supports us and keeps us going. But for us, like, this is like the whole company is fully remote now.
Nice.
We made a big gamble in 2019, and we were like, can a company exist on Zoom and Slack? And then the very next year, everyone else thought the same thing.
So I'm curious, if you're willing to share, how do things look logistically? How is that all handled since you're always on the road?
On a personal standpoint, I'm like many other hackers where I'm a nester, right? Where I need my cozy environment that I'm in control of, and I can set up my, and it used to be like dual monitors, and then it just kind of kept going. I actually went vertical recently. I've got the two curved 32 stacked, and then two, I don't know what they are, 30 something, 40, whatever, but they're just 16 by 9 stacked. And then I went ridiculous and put like a giant, like 100-inch behind me. That's like basically a
Van?
no. This is in my home studio. Home studio. So as a nester, I'm just like, I want my environment that I can be in control of. I've got my my lab there. I've got like a Chrome box, couple Windows boxes, Linux boxes, Macs.
Right.
So I can like, I'm testing a payload, and like boop 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 boop. And it's like, how do you have that and then also have the flexibility and freedom of being able to harness the good vibes of the open road?
Yeah.
I did a very brief tour on a recent episode of Hack 5. I love this. You can now get a folding 19-inch dual monitor setup, but it's just got a VESA mount on the back, and I found a VESA mount to back of headrest mount. So in my Sprinter van, my office setup is such that I've got a little couch with my sliding table, and then like basically I'm looking at the back of the driver's seat. So
That's sweet.
I all I do now is flip open my dual monitors, turn on my mouse and keyboard, shake the mouse, and it's like, it's the little things.
Right.
Being able to immediately do that, and then just like the auxiliary monitor makes all the difference in the world. So I've been actually able to get a decent amount of real logistics work done. And then with the Starlink on the roof, total game changer.
So I don't know how I would fit all that in my Z31, which is a two-seater. I mean, I've got the lift back. I was thinking for a while it'd be cool to like have a little setup in my trunk with like the top lifted, put some LED lights in it.
Yeah. I've had some friends that have toyed with the idea of doing like a virtual workspace with VR goggles, and like then it doesn't matter literally where they are. And there's something kind of cool to think that there can be a space that is familiar and that can be virtual, and that you can build your own. For me personally, I can get easily convinced in the right VR that I'm having a transcendent out-of-body experience. I am whatever it is, like flying a drone. I am a bird, right?
Yeah. The animals speak to you and create new products.
But yeah, exactly. But
Sounds
but
like an
it's
acid trip.
it's I haven't been able to get there myself.
Right.
We'll see as that technology progresses, matures. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend that does mixing in 3D with like Dolby Atmos.
Okay.
I don't really understand that stuff. It's badass, but they like manipulate stuff in 3D space for like surround sound and that kind of stuff. I'd love to see that evolve to a point where I can do like my modeling and like write code. I mean, I've seen primitive
Yeah.
like interfaces.
It's like those. So much of it seems like a proof of concept demo, and that's kind of how things happen, though.
That's how the best stuff happens.
Yeah, you see a proof of concept demo. I remember seeing at CES, I don't know what it is like 2011, 2012, these like college kids showing off this thing that they called the Oculus Rift. And it's like, well, okay, that was like a tech demo.
Yeah.
Like it was running on some Unreal Engine box, and I actually got to meet like the founders because they were like, I don't know, we made a toy, we're showing it off. And it's like, oh, that's really smart. You just harness gyros from these things and you slapped those screens there, and it's like, this makes sense.
Right.
And then boom, there is now, to whatever extent it is successful, there's a vertical that is VR.
Yep.
And it's like a known quantity thing now.
Yep.
So I love that. I mean, that's I live with that and breathe that and walk that every day of my life. Having like developed things that started as proof of concepts. Like I developed this on a little Arduino,
right.
and I got I got it to inject keystrokes. I don't know. Now let's refine it.
Speaking of which, do you want to tell us a short origin story, perhaps about the Ducky for those who aren't familiar?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of where this all got its start, the whole hardware.
That's one of those things, too. You want to talk about de facto standards. I needed something to call it. So the USB RubberDucky, for those that aren't aware, is a keystroke injection tool, meaning looks like a flash drive, plug it into a computer. It doesn't enumerate as a flash drive. It enumerates as a keyboard and then sends keystrokes the way that a computer would accept them from any keyboard. And because there's inherent trust between computers and humans, it's going to accept those just as it would anybody that's sitting down logged into that machine. Great. Thing about that was I needed a name for it when I came up with this, and so I just was like, at the time, like SQL injection was really hot, and I was like, well, I don't know, let's call it keystroke injection. That's what everybody calls it now. That's stuck, and I'm like, everything that was named was just somebody going like, this needs a name. I don't know, I'll call it that, and then everybody just goes, yeah, that's the thing, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I just picked something, yeah. But the reason that I developed it, though, is because out of laziness, which is the mother of all invention. Right. I was working IT, and I was constantly having to fix the same power, the SharePoint disconnected, the network share, the network printer, and it was always like, as the IT guy, it was like, oh, move, I gotta, type in. It was like, I was constantly like, okay, how do I fix this problem as quick as possible so I can go back to playing Counter-Strike? Which was usually Windows key R, run dialog, CMD, enter, throw in a couple of commands like net use, whatever. Of course, now it's all PowerShell, but same idea, and problem was solved. And then it got me thinking like, well, man, I could type this so much faster if I could just pre-program it. And so that's the invention story there, just laziness.
Yeah, necessity.
Necessity.
Laziness is what drives a lot of really badass projects that I've seen, and also a lot of people that have gotten into this space. Me personally, Wi-Fi hacking is where I got my start because we didn't have internet growing up.
Oh, wow.
And I would have to walk to Starbucks every day, or my mom would have to drive me.
No way.
Yeah, I got tired of that shit.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So during school, I watched videos on like Wi-Fi hacking. My first computer was a Pi.
Yeah.
I went home, cracked my neighbor's Wi-Fi after about like a month.
Yeah.
Did the password cracking through Google Colab. I don't know.
Wait. So because you got into this like around an era, but like, not early 2000s where it was like WEP and it was super easy. You got in it in a WPA landscape.
WPA2.
It was WPA2, so you actually had to try a little harder.
Yeah, so it ended up being a default Spectrum network.
Okay, cool.
I did some research. The passwords are usually like noun, adjective, 3 numbers.
Yeah.
So I just compiled word lists from Webster's Dictionary. I used Google Colab, installed Hashcat on their service that has like access to GPUs. Just ran it for like, I forget, 2 or 3 weeks. Cracked it.
You know what's crazy to think? You could have gone next door and been like, "Hey, I'm a kid. I'm trying to get my start. Can I borrow your Wi-Fi? Can I borrow a cup of Wi-Fi?" Like your neighbor would have been like thrilled to help you out. But because you had to, walk uphill both ways to school, it actually, taught you something, put hair on your chest, as it were, and that's great. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I remember when I was little. Of course, what I wanted was like the most badass computer at the time. It was probably like a Pentium or something. I don't know. But we couldn't afford it. We were poor. So my mom got an IBM PC, like the original PC, off the newspaper, which is like Craigslist, but like you can hold it. And I'm, to this day, so grateful that in order to play any games, whatever, I had to go to the library and get a book on BASIC and then like write the programs out in the thing. And it's like, had I just gotten a 486 and been able to like, install Wolfenstein or Doom, I don't know if I would have been the creator and the hacker mindset kind of person that I am today. And it's like, I love iPads and tools for the sake of a tool, but there's really something to be said about just working with, trying to squeeze the everlast living megahertz out of garbage.
It's nice that technology and like all these new platforms and things are facilitating development and like even AI for writing code and like all that stuff. My maybe hot take on that is I feel like it's the more advanced developers that should be using those tools because it cuts out a lot of the learning process that needs to happen to get to a point where you can comfortably say like, oh, I know how I would do this myself. I just want the AI to do it rather than like...
Totally. Yeah, AI is a scary one where it's like, I equate it to like calculators, right? We all, like public school education in the United States, like in elementary school, we weren't allowed to use a calculator. We are in our math classes, you know, first, second, third, fourth grade. I don't know at what point we were allowed to use them, but they were teaching us principles because it didn't matter about getting the answer. It mattered about showing your work.
Speaking of calculators, and also you mentioned BASIC, I forget that's how actually I got my start. We had TI-84 calculators.
Yeah, I love those.
I load games on there.
Yep.
And I wanted to learn how to program games, so I found out you could do BASIC. Taught myself programming through there. Figured out you could actually hijack the 2.5 millimeter audio jack on the calculators to control hardware. So I was like programming, I made like a messaging system for my friends. I eventually learned how to hook that up to an ESP8266, wrote my own messaging protocol so we could communicate over Wi-Fi.
Nice. Dude, that's great.
Real rough and dirty stuff.
I you know, honestly, BASIC is, it's a language that forces you to be creative because it is so limited, but it's also at the same time super accessible. It's actually one of the inspirations behind Ducky script, the way that it is, because I have such heartfelt memories of growing up with BASIC that I'm like, I'm going to force people to, you know, use syntax similar to what I grew up with.
No, it really sticks.
It's all caps for a reason. But funnily enough, on that, the math thing, right? AI. Yeah. And then I realize now, looking back at it, that my teachers, maybe they weren't as open thinking, but basically, I had a situation in like where I got really disillusioned with academia in like, maybe it was like 6th grade, where in algebra, you know, you get the little worksheet you take home for homework and it's like all the same problem. Basically, the numbers are different, but the way you get there is all the same. And so I was like, oh, this is kind of lame. If I'm going to do something once, I might as well automate it. So I read a program in BASIC where you solve for X, right? And so you give it the other numbers and then boom, it spits it out. So I just plugged it in, and then it gave me all the numbers, and so I just brought in my homework with all the answers. And I got an F on that because my teacher said, show your work. So then I got another ditto or whatever they're called, the same thing. So the next time I did the exact same thing, except for at the top of the page, I showed my work, and it was like a 10-line program. So I wrote out the 10-line program in BASIC at the top of it, and I turned it in. I was like, that was my work to get the answer to all these. I still got an F because it wasn't the way that they wanted me to get to the answer. And mind you,
found a creative way to solve a problem. It's like, you know.
It was the 90s and they probably didn't know what to do with a kid that was programming. It just wasn't part of the curriculum then. I think had I done that a few years later, maybe they would have actually encouraged me to get more into computer science. Right. That's okay. But looking back at it, I can appreciate what they were trying to do. And I think it's the same thing with AI, where it's like, look, if I just got the 486, then I could have played Doom. I wouldn't have become the creator. If I could just get AI to write my term paper, I wouldn't learn how to write a good paper. And so I think you're right that it has a place once you actually know what you're doing. I feel like we're also getting sounded out, so this might be the moment to wrap. We should do this again in Austin.
Yes, we're going to have a lot more content coming out, and of course we'll be here next year, DEFCON.
Yep.
It'll be the 20th anniversary.
The 20th anniversary, Hack 5 since 2005.
Also check out these badass shirts.
Yeah, these shirts came out.
We'll have some cool merch next year too.
Yeah, thank you Ali Diamond and Miscreants on the shirts.
Yep.
And until next time, I'm Darren Kitchen.
I'm Alex Lynd.
Trust your technolust.